Hello and welcome to this episode 14 of the Online Therapy Podcast with your host, Renee McDonald. And I'm here this afternoon with David Lawson, and we are up to episode 14. It's been a bit of a hiatus for this podcast. Things have been pretty busy, COVID land and my business. So thank you for your patience, everyone, for this next episode. Thank you, David Lawson, for joining me.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you for inviting me to share some of my knowledge with you and your followers this afternoon.
Excellent. So I want to ask you first, David, who are you and what do you do?
Well, Renee, I'm a bald white guy. I'm on the wrong side of 50, but I'm on the right side of 60. I've been in the people helping profession for nearly 21 years. And I both a counsellor and a coach.
Okay, excellent. So I know that you do lots of different things, David, and you probably undersell yourself. So can you just give me a little bit more about what you do therapy-wise and coaching?
Yeah, my week is not boring. It ranges from I usually have 2 or 3 sessions a week as a supervisor to a number of supervisees I've got. I do a lot of employment assistance program counselling and I've got contracts with several of the large providers, and that's a lot of that is probably half of that EAP stuff is phone or Zoom work. I probably averaged about every 6 weeks a critical incident debrief where there's been a workplace accident, death or suicide. So far this year I've averaged 3, so that's 1 a week at the moment, and I've got another one to do end of this week, and then one the following week to do. People have want me to come in. And I also do about 40% of my week is working with couples, doing relationships work.
Yep. I know you're also a supervisor. Can you tell everyone listening in, because this is also a therapist are listening in, what kind of supervision do you do or provide to therapists in the biz?
What's interesting, actually, majority of my supervisees is all done by phone or Zoom. I live in a small regional town in Queensland, and all of my supervisees all live. All but 2 of my supervisees all live in different parts of Australia. To me, I only have a couple who are actually based where I live. But everybody else is all over the place. So my aim in supervision is we start off as a teacher-student relationship, but my aim is for ultimately to be 2 people chewing the fat over about an issue with the aim of me learning, you learning, and to make to do better work with that particular client. That's my aim, and I really like seeing that student-teacher relationship go into 2 colleagues just chewing the fat over thinking about things out loud. I really like that, because I think that's where we get to the deeper meaning of things and where the rubber hits the road in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that approach, and I guess it's very similar to my approach too. I guess, do you use particular models in supervision?
It's probably a little bit experiential in terms of, so what does that mean for you, Renee? If someone says, so David, what do you think I should do here? Well, I flick it back and go, oh, okay, so you asking me what I would do. What do you think, what tells you that you've got a problem? What tells you that you need to ask me? Or sometimes I'm really naughty, I just say, so tell me what you wouldn't do. Because sometimes I think exploring the negative, what's the worst that can happen from this? Sometimes we actually have a deeper and more richer conversation when we discuss that. So, so sometimes I'll actually go down that path. So it's about helping the person to do their own inner work, but to reflect out loud. And so therefore, if you do that enough times, in my opinion, things start to become autopilot. You go,
Mm.
yeah, it becomes intuitive. You know, this is the right thing to do. This is the right path to go. Or, oh no, I think I might
Yeah.
just need to take the foot off the pedal here. This could blow up on me here. I just need to
Yep.
be careful. So that sort of stuff becomes intuitive, and I think that's important.
Yep.
And I know that people before COVID said that you couldn't get that sort of intuitiveness online. Well, can I tell you, I was probably one of those. I was thinking, yeah, well, I don't know. But can I tell you, since COVID, and I've done so much work online as a result of COVID, I go, you know what? I reckon you can have that intuition be intuitive on online. And Renee, you talk about online presence. And I think
Yep.
that's when I first heard that, I think, well, I think she knows what she's talking about. But, but now I've experienced for myself, I go, oh, my goodness, that is right. That
Yep.
does exist. That is
Yes.
right.
Yes. That's kind of a good, in the TV biz, they'd call it segue, but to a good kind of process and flick into the next question I was going to actually ask you is, how did you get into working online in the first place?
Well, my first experience of ever helping anybody was online.
Mm.
I cut my teeth as a crisis counsellor on the Lifeline crisis line. So I was doing that for a couple of years before I even did anything face to face to start with. So I'd actually cut my teeth on the online world, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, sure enough, it was telephone. It's a little bit different today because the people on crisis lines now are on time frames and that. But back in those days, we could spend an hour with someone holding the space until the ambos or the police got there, until the call was traced. Because in those days, and I'm talking 21 years ago, in those days, it took like 20 minutes for a call to be traced. Whereas today, I think it's a heck of a lot quicker than that.
Yep.
So I learnt to hold the space with people who are suicidal, sitting there with them for 45, 50, 60 minutes. So that's how I cut my teeth on the online world.
Yep. And that's so fascinating because I have a very similar experience, and it was about 21 years ago that I worked for Lifeline as well on the phones. And so, so I think that is invaluable. So what would you tell, students or learners, because a lot of students and learners also listen to this podcast, who might be studying counselling or psychotherapy or coaching, just wondering what you would then tell them about doing voluntary work, like based on that then.
Well, I tell people now, if you're thinking about going into the counselling world, therapy world, do the Lifeline Telephone Counsellors course.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't meet their requirements to go on the phones, at least you've learned a hell of a lot about how people work, about different things in life, and also you'll explore some of your things that are pushing your buttons.
Yep.
Because they're not going to let you go on the phone unless they think you've got the goods. And if you do get through to the phone, I say to people, look, do it for 12 months, put that training into place. When I was working, I actually ended up having a paid position as a face-to-face counsellor at Lifeline. And at the time, there was 20 of us in the building at that time. And I think 17 or 18 of us had all cut out teeth on the crisis line.
Yeah.
So if they had a position coming up, they would give it to someone who'd been on the phone for a while because they knew that person's skills.
Yep. Exactly.
And they'd sort of proved themselves. They didn't have to work out, I wonder if this person's really as good as their resume says. I think the volunteer stuff is good. And rather than go and do a degree straight up, you've had a bit of an idea about what it's going to be. And if you don't want to do that sort of work, that's fine. There's other avenues. But I would say volunteering is a good way is to get a look at how other people do what they do.
Yeah. So some of the best experiences I've had, moving through the field have been voluntary, that have then led to paid work, which is fascinating to say out loud. Whether it's placement due to studying or Lifeline, and I did very similar, suicide buddy, and I did all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, then I was paid on domestic violence line through Lifeline back in the day. So I'm hearing you on all of those levels. And yeah, we also had face-to-face counselling at the time. I didn't end up going there because I got a paid job instead. So, but this is all great. What I'm after, though, I guess today our conversation is around in the online space. How are you finding that? This is also for the listeners to hear. How do you find the online space being a therapist? What has your experiences been? What has helped you work your way through the navigation of the crazy online world as it is? Just kind of want to put that over to you now.
Two things. 12 months ago, if you would have said that I would be doing couples work online, and that I would be doing sessions with couples and individuals in their bedroom while they're on their bed with the laptop at the foot of the bed. If you would have told me I would be doing sessions where people pulled up in a lonely country road, and we're doing the session there, them talking in their phone, leaning up against a tree, and telling me, David, no one ever uses this road, so we'll be fine. Yet in that 60-minute session, 3 people drove down the road and said, are you right, darling? No, I'm all good. I'm just talking to someone. Oh, okay. Or if you would have said to me that I would have been conducting sessions in the middle of a cow paddock where a grazier was checking his cows, and here he is in his ute talking to me for 90 minutes, and there's a cow coming up, putting its nose in there to see what he's doing, I would have said, no way in the world would I be doing that. However, they're all experiences that I've had. And let's just say I'm not sort of phased by that anymore, but I guess before COVID, I had these boundaries which were very rigid, but now I still have boundaries, but they're a lot more flexible because you've got to meet the person where they're at. And I get that now. I sort of got it before, but I really get it now, and look, up to point now, I'll say to people, look, you don't need to drive 2 hours or 3 hours to come and see me. We can do this online. Some people still want to drive that time, but most of them now, I've noticed a shift. People are happy to do that online now.
Yep.
So yeah.
Awesome. And so, just making a declaration, David did his training with me, just kind of wondering how you found that experience and just what you'd make suggestions, recommendations, or other things for the industry just in general.
I think that the biggest mistake you can make in our industry is that you don't need to go and learn something. Not saying you need to do another master's or degree or whatever, but I think knowledge is very important. And your stuff, I just wanted to have a better understanding of that, and I'd actually started doing it long before COVID. And I just wanted to expand my knowledge in that area. I'm just going, well, if I'm doing this stuff now, maybe I'm not doing it right. I was doing Skype. Well, I stopped using Skype as soon as I did the first bit. I think, oh, okay, I understand why I don't do Skype. Okay, get that. And so it's just like, it's one thing at a time, understanding privacy and security. That's more important in the online space than it is in the other space. It's all important, whichever way you go. But on the online world, you have to be a lot more careful. And I guess that's where doing your stuff has shown me, okay, all right, okay, I totally get that, and what I need to look for if I'm going to use somebody's stuff, where I might, what I might look for to go determine whether this is safe or not safe,
Yeah, good. Yeah, because a lot of therapists out there didn't necessarily work in tech before they were therapists, or didn't necessarily work in any particular field. A lot of people, it might be their first job, or they might have gone off and had kids, and come out and then they're a therapist on the back of this. And then often there's been this assumption that you can be a therapist and you don't necessarily need to be on top of technology. That was definitely in the past. But now things have really changed, and a lot of people are having to transition even reluctantly. And this is what I've found in the field, even with COVID. It's like sometimes there's even somewhat of a reluctance, and then not a belief that you can have the same therapeutic outcome. I'm wondering now for you how you find your therapeutic outcomes online now versus before, and particularly before you did any training.
I definitely get better therapeutic outcomes today than I did 12 months ago. But then I would say I get better therapeutic outcomes than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That's because my experiences got better. And the more people you talk to, the more you should learn from that. The more knowledge I've gained. And you do some training courses like yours, then you go, oh, okay, I can use that. Oh, really? Okay, I shouldn't do that. All right. And I see why I shouldn't. So I think that now I should say, not that I wasn't getting good therapeutic outcomes 15 years ago. I just realized I could have done more if I'd known more. But that's where I was in my journey, and we're all like that.
Yep.
So I just realized that the outcomes I get now are better because, especially in the online world, because I'm more comfortable. My presence is one is confidence.
Yes.
And I can, and I'm not a techie by any means. I just know that you push certain things happen. That's all I know. But knowing that knowledge often is more than what the client has, and just being able to say, look, it's okay. And I guess, Renee, I know at some stage you can ask me this, but if no one takes away anything but what I'm about to say, this is what I would say about the online world. You need to have a plan B.
Yep.
So you rely on the internet, whoever your carrier is. In Australia, we got the NBN. But it's really, really good then to have your mobile phone there that you can tether off. Or if the Zoom doesn't work on the tethering doesn't work, you can just rip your phone out and you can do the Zoom session on it.
Yep.
That has been the best. That's been the best advice. Yep, you got yours there too. That's best bit of advice that you shared. And I went, yeah, I get that. Because there were some days during COVID that the NBN, you could walk faster than the NBN was working. Seriously. So I went on. I'd have to tether off my phone because it's a different network. Since then, what I've realized is that I'm still not safe. So what I've done is I'm with one big carrier, and now I went and bought a prepaid mobile with their opposition.
Yep.
The chances of both their networks being down together is very slim. Okay, because they're competing networks and they have very large networks, and so that's what I've done that's my plan B. In case something doesn't work, at least I've got a plan B.
Excellent.
And that's the biggest piece of information I learned, and I think that's something that we all need to have a plan B. If this crashes, I mean, my laptop. You realise my laptop. It happened today when we were talking this. My laptop crashed 2 minutes before we were supposed to talk.
Yep, it happens.
So I had my phone all done and my phone logged onto our session, and then my computer started again. And next thing I got, Renee says, David, there's two Davids here. I'd logged in from two different things. So I just got out of my phone. So folks, that's just a really good example of having a backup plan. Yep. It's really important because that makes you look professional.
Yep.
And if it's the first session with your client and they're really anxious, and it just all falls out, they go, "Oh my God! Clearly it's me." They're going to take it. They're going to take it that way. So it's good to have a plan B. So I couldn't emphasize that enough, but to have a plan B.
Yep, great. And especially in the country and any kind of regional areas like yourself, David, and me down here too. Anywhere out of the cities, often the internet is hit and miss. So it's really important to have some kind of a plan B if you can get one. Yeah.
One of my supervisees, she does a lot of phone work. So she calls the client and then waits 10 minutes and then calls them again to have the session, because it takes 5 to 10 minutes for them to walk down to the front gate or to hop into their ute and drive to the highest spot on their property so they can have the conversation.
Yeah, it happens.
They see that she's called. Okay, great. I need to go and find that high spot. And that's how they do her stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we've got to have workarounds, basically. So, whether it's plan A and plan B or just some kind of way to work around the issue, it's thinking about those kind of possibilities. That's awesome. So I guess now I've got a few final questions where it's like, what are some things from this conversation here, but even your work in the field in the online space, what are some takeaways for the people who are learning or just starting out themselves that you could suggest?
Well, we talked about the plan B.
Yep.
The second most important thing, make sure you've got a supervisor who knows something, has been around for a while.
Yep.
And make sure you check that supervisor out. See if, do a discovery call with them. Just see what they're like. Because it may not click, But the thing is, you want a supervisor there who's there to help you, not for them to boss you around, because it's all about you and about them. So that's the second thing. Third thing is really encourage you to do more than the PD that you require for your professional membership. I aim to do 100 hours a year, and I usually blow that away every year. But I aim to do a lot more. Why? Because I think that 20 hours is a bit of a cop-out. That I'm not casting dispersions on anybody else, but for me personally, I think I need to do 100. In terms of supervision, I don't think 10 hours a year is sufficient. I just do 2 hours. I do 1 hour a fortnight for individual supervision, and then I do 7 or 8 hours a year of supervision on supervision. And yes, it's a lot of money, but it keeps you on the straight and narrow, which is really important. Good supervision makes it harder for you to stuff up. That's my opinion.
I 100% agree with that one. And on that note, if people want to know good supervisors, I've trained a bunch of them. David's one. There's other people in my lists that are good supervisors, particularly the online space. So often my people have done accredited supervision training as well as online supervision training with me. So you'll find the people who come into the AOTT training are amazing people and amazing supervisors. So that's good. Anything else before we wrap up today that you can make suggestions about, David?
I started uni when I was 44, and I come out the end of 6 years later. I come out with a degree, with a master's. It's not too late to start. So any of you there in your 40s or your 50s, it's not too late. In fact, I think us oldies probably have a little bit on the younger people, because we have lived experience.
Yes.
The other thing is, if people want to find me, Renee, just Google findingthelight.com.au and you're going to find me.
Okay, excellent.
I'm pretty easy to find. Just look for the old guy with the bald-headed guy with the white beard. That's who you're to look for.
Look up David Lawson, findingthelight.com.au.
Yes.
So that's awesome. And thanks for that, because I was going to ask you that final question of how do people get you? So you've done that for me. Thanks, David, for this talk. It's awesome. And I've said this before to some of my other guests that maybe we'll have you back on sometime, and maybe even if David, you're running any kind of project or other things in the online space, we'll have you back. So thanks, David, and we'll catch everyone next time.
Thanks, Renee. My pleasure.
Okay, bye for now.